Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Live with Littledata. I'm here with Oliver from Sweet Analytics, one of our valued partner companies, and we're here talking about how you can build a best-in-class data stack for DTC growth. So I think there's lots of sort of data tools out there. I'm definitely, having been in this business for 10 years, I know that when you start saying, hey, we're a data tool, people's eyes glaze over a bit, and there's lots of confusion and awkwardness. But what I want to do is really unpack what are the differences between the different tools you might be offered out there? Where do they all fit in that? Because you probably need different types of data tools to be able to grow your DTC brand. And obviously we both have products in the space, so we have somewhat biased recommendations, but we'll try and talk a little bit about the options more generally. So welcome, Oliver.
Thanks, Wood. I'm hiding in a cloakroom in Shoreditch, so you look as though you've got a sort of swimming pool or something behind. But
yeah, it's much more glamorous than that.
Different background, but yeah, I think exactly that. We've both been seeing people's eyes glaze over while we've talked data for many years, so we're probably both pretty good at that. Getting over that topic.
As ever, if you have any questions, please do ask in the chat, and we'll try and pick those up later in the talk. So yes, I guess let's start with kind of the different types of data that you'd want to track as a DTC brand. And I think, talking before the show, I think that it kind of boils down to three main areas. So you've got on-site performance, what are people actually doing when they're on your site, and how many people have you got, and what are they buying? You've got kind of how do they get there, the bit that's traditionally called marketing attribution, what channels brought them or campaigns brought them to buy. And then obviously you've got actually getting the data into those channels themselves, which is about actually optimization. So sending a better signal into Google, Meta, Klaviyo, etc., so that you can actually boost the performance of those tools and grow. So I think a good data stack, I suggest we need to cover those three areas. So,
yeah, I agree completely. And if I had a pecking order, I think I'd have attribution at the bottom of those. Though I suspect that we may spend a lot of the time talking about that. But it's the red herring of the pack.
It's not that it's not important, as you say. It's just that it's confusing, it's challenging, and as you say, it's arguably not what's the right way of putting this. It's not actionable. Like great. A mix of channels brings you traffic. I think we all know that. Brands need more, or buyers need more than one touch point before they purchase. This is sort of marketing basics. But I think knowing that doesn't necessarily change radically the way you run your business.
No, I think I'm glad to see we've said it would be third and walk straight in. But I mean, if I just give one, just a little bit exactly that. Why I'm in the cloakroom in Shoreditch, because I'm at a conference and about the full funnel marketing, and it's been really interesting hearing very successful brands talking about their approach to this key point, and they're not all saying that they believe everything that comes out of an attribution platform. So I'll stop ranting on that one now, and we'll come back. But it's I'll get going on that in a moment, I'm sure.
Okay, so let's talk about the first one, and I think you agreed was the most important one, is the sort of on-site performance. So I think your basic options there are Google Analytics and Shopify Analytics, and to some extent other reporting tools like Triple Whale. We'll comment on more with marketing attribution. What do you think are the main differences between those different tools, and why would you pick one or the other?
Yeah, I think the real problem is that we used to have an absolute core standard of Google Analytics. Everyone had the same platform. We all knew the same metrics, etc., etc. So that, to be honest, was where everyone knew how to measure their site and measure their site performance. I personally still believe that Google Analytics is the best of those tools. It has the most flexibility once you get into it. But the real problem is there's been a real trashing of GA4 during the last year or so. And that's because I think, what's it for me to say, but Google did a really poor job at selling it and explaining to people the changes and things like that. And it's still taking a lot of users a lot of time to really understand. But if the things that we say are really important for a brand is understanding how your website works and are you converting, then GA should be the best tool there is. If you can get over, and there's an if there, if you can just get over the hurdles of really understanding what you're doing. At the moment, there's just to finish off this, the real confusion is that I think what that's allowed to happen is it's allowed other people into that, funnel, that discussion about what the funnel is. Shopify's got a shopping funnel. You mentioning competitors to Sweet. Triple Whale has a shopping funnel, and you and I were talking. I had a client who, rang me up yesterday saying, "Well, I've got 2% conversion by one platform, 3 by another, 5 by another. Which one is right?" And we can come on to which we think is best right. But I think the real problem is we've just got confusion. Running on that.
I think that the brands obviously predicate the fact you're on Shopify, but the brands that we both work with a lot who are I think they tend to fall back to Shopify Analytics because it feels like the most truthful. I know that that's the platform that's generating the money and where the orders are actually made. I think the massive downside though is that it's not flexible. In two senses, there's no sort of way you can slice and dice data like you can in Google Analytics, but it's also not part of an open system. You can't actually pull the data from Shopify Analytics into any other tool. Shopify doesn't provide endpoints for that. There's no sort of integration. So what that means is, if you want to go and build a dashboard in Looker Studio or Tableau or myriad other tools, you can't sort of have the Shopify Analytics data in there. So I think for those two reasons, and as I said, I think I understand that people's problems with the complexity of Google Analytics, but I think the big winner for me is that there are literally hundreds of tools you can use on top of that, including Sweet, that will pull data into a nice, more easily digestible and visually appealing dashboard. And that means you don't need to see it as your reporting tool of choice. You could just see it as your sort of data store of choice.
Yeah, but I think there are 2 points there, Edward, which is really important, which is, ultimately there's the conversion number. Yeah. And everyone wants to have the same number of conversions. I've sold 100 orders. I've got 100 orders. I've got 100 orders. And that's core to anything. But if one remembers that the shopping funnel is not just about the 100 at the bottom, it's about measuring how much comes in the top. And, whether it's 100,000 or 50,000 matters. And, I think everyone, once they get to the site, has got, is good at sort of beginning to pick up the right events or whatever between it. But the start point and the end point, I think, tend to be where we get see most variance across different platforms, and that's the most complicated.
Yep.
So though it's it sounds easy and simple in Shopify. Shopify is great because it adds up to 100 orders. I'm not sure it does a great job at the steps in between, or does it come from mobile or everything else? And that's what I think you really need to be able to get into the granularity.
Yep. So both in terms of the actual steps of the funnel, things like product list views and clicks, product detail views, interaction, the product details page, adds to cart, all those sort of important micro steps in the journey. But also from a point of view, as you say, of what Google Analytics calls dimensions, being able to understand and segment those by, for example, location, device type, and actually particularly marketing channel. What we see, we'll come on to obviously the marketing bit later, but obviously sometimes there's quite different user behavior depending on kind of where they come from and whether they're new or returning users, that kind of thing. So I think it's no secret that we're also big boosters for Google Analytics. I've been promoting the platform for 10 years, and it's a good sort of point, I think, to mention our new Google Analytics app. So we've been doing this for Shopify for over 7 years now, and what we've discovered is lots and lots of key ways you can improve the accuracy, both in terms of all those micro funnel events, but also the actual key conversions and revenue number that's fed through. So what we've done is package that all into a new free app, which is basically only about tracking accurate data into Google Analytics. It's free because we think that is the very basic building block that most brands would need to have in their data stack, and we want to be able to support that for brands of any size forever for free. And it's not in any way there's no accuracy limit, but I do think that actually a lot of people who, as you say, went negative on Google Analytics last year, yes, there's a user interface problem there. Perhaps it's quite complicated, but the other key reason is that they just weren't tracking the right stuff. And I think, as you say, if you get that conversion number accurate and you get all those steps leading up to it in much more detail, then it becomes a much more valuable tool. You're no longer just talking about sessions and hits. You're actually talking about, where do people get to? Where do they drop out before buying?
Yeah, because I think the fundamental problem, people throw away GA4 just because the order number may not add up to what it is as you have your basic, so it's just a sort of confidence piece, etc. That I think works across that. But I think but it's really important. But again, that doesn't necessarily absolutely give you an answer about what all those steps are, because no one moves conversion by knowing the conversion number. They move the step conversion by understanding the micro steps that
Correct.
with
exactly.
it. So,
exactly.
Yeah,
no one just says, right, let's double our conversion rate. What you're actually going to do is increase by 20% the number of people add to cart because of a redesign of the PDP or something. So that's you're right. It's understanding those steps, and I think just to go back a bit of history, the reason why we launched Littledata in the first place, we were working with big brands in Europe who had this constant problem. They wanted to track the very basics. What they want to do is track this customer journey across the site, the e-commerce manager or the product managers at the stores, but it would just constantly break. They'd launch a new maybe a new theme, a new page, a new flow through the site, and the tracking would break, and so they had no real like-for-like comparison of whether this was actually better or not. And typically, annoyingly, they'd find out about the breakage a month afterwards, and so a whole month of data be lost. So with our server-side tracking technology, we realized for Shopify we could make this super robust and basically remove that fear from any sort of e-commerce manager's mind that when we're making changes, and obviously if you're a successful brand, you're likely to be changing things around and doing lots of A/B tests and so on. But the key thing is that tracking those core stages of the funnel should be robust and independent of any of that testing and redesign you're doing.
I think actually our CTO at Sweet, Miguel, has actually just designed a little widget just to give people that key information of has your tracker dropped off, because there is nothing more important and more annoying in life than maybe you haven't looked at it every day, but you come back to your GA or any tracking and find that you haven't got it.
I built a similar thing in my Christmas break for between the in-laws coming to stay. We built a little audit tool to exactly check that. Okay, cool. So let's go on to attribution. Let's honestly, I'm gonna time us out in about 7 minutes to make sure we don't round. So yeah, what are your options there? If you want to be able to, you're a marketeer and you want to understand what's bringing people to what's bringing people to the site and to purchase.
Yeah, I think there's a whole piece. Yeah, and the first thing I think really is that even okay, I might as well talk about competition. For me, Triple Whale, Polar are probably number 1 and 2 in my market. And us at Sweet, we all use a pixel as part of our tracking mechanisms. And the first thing that it makes pixels very difficult is even though we're all using first-party pixels, etc., we're not relying on third-party pixels. There are a whole load of reasons why we limit to what we can do: consent banners, ad blockers. There's a whole raft of things that actually makes that for any of us that there's just not 100% information. And the biggest bugbear I have is people believing that there is 100% accurate information, and in particular that sort of the biggest problem here then on top of that is not just what happens at site level, but obviously is things like meta, which just don't have the ability to be tracked properly in those methodologies. And then you've got offline, and you've got, it goes on and on and on as you stack them all up, and as a result you end up with an impossible task of trying to deliver attribution. And as a result, though we have a tracker, I'm fully versed in multi-touch attribution. It's just a limited point. And then at what point, what do you want that information for? Is what I always come back to. But you see, you're in the same thing about making sure one has accurate attribution. But I think one just has to be clear about the limitations. So we should do that first, really.
Yeah, I think exactly there are limitations, and I mean this is true for the on-site tracking, the previous bit we're talking about, because the technologies just overlapping. But I mean, I think everything from basically rising ad blockers, you've got Apple's intelligent tracking prevention and various iterations of that, whether it's about blocking cookies or stripping UTM params or whatever. You've got people just privacy consent, so you've got people opting out of being tracked in Europe particularly, and rolling out in other countries across the world. And you've got mobile browsing, which is basically just intermittent network connections where stuff just doesn't ping. So I think all of those trends are only going one way, which is it's harder. What I think the big choice, and perhaps from an outsider's perspective, where I see, because we're not in this game. Like Littledata is not. We're not trying to be our marketing attribution model or marketing attribution tool. And I think the big choice is between whether you are trying to use a tool like Triple Whale that's trying to be internally consistent. And what I mean by that is, if you've ever watched some of the original ads for Triple Whale, they are got to be said, their marketing team, probably with a fairly large creative budget, did some good job there. But it's this hilarity about every channel kind of claiming that they bought the sale. And so, fundamentally, the problem they're trying to solve is to make all those that sort of attribution add up to 100%, which is cool. But actually, what that means behind the scenes is they're having to, I think they might use the word adjust or reconcile. I think we might use the word fudging. They're fudging the numbers to make it, to sort of say, oh, well, maybe that one didn't quite come from Meta. So, yeah, it makes it feel good. It makes it feel like you've got a complete picture, but it's another version of the truth. It's not. There's no science to this. It's a lot of it is unknowable. They're just filling in the gaps that are unknown.
Yeah, I think that it's what's the version of the truth that sort of comes down to this, because you've then got the Phosphors and this people of the world, which are impression-based tracking. They're not even trying to pretend that they're down at the conversion level. But it's all about what makes you feel. For me, the whole topic here comes from somebody asking the question of, do you know whether your marketing spend works or not? Yeah, normally from somewhere at the board.
Yeah.
Marketing director's got no idea to that question, so they ask the agency. The agency's got absolutely no idea, and then, as we know, Triple Whale had a very large budget telling everyone they'd solved attribution. But you look at their website now and try and find them claiming that they've solved attribution, and it's on about page 96. So
it's true. It's true. The whole proposition of privilege to reporting and more generally, and yes. So I think it's not it's not a solvable problem. There are other we don't probably have scope in this chat to go into other ways of looking at attribution, things like marketing mix modeling, those kind of things. But I think the basics for most consumer brands online is that you can attribute quite a lot of that from landing pages in terms of, and typically, as I said, the mechanism is that the link you send people to has a UTM parameter or some other identifier, and you can then link that click from the ad through to some landing on the site, and then through from landing on the site to actually purchasing. And as I said, that works a decent enough amount of the time if you've got the data set up right. Again, it's challenging, but I think perhaps I think my view of what's the right tools here is firstly one side Google Analytics still, their a data-driven model is works. I mean it's a version of truth. It's not necessarily the only way of looking at it, but it's certainly a decent enough way of looking at it. And then I think with Sweet you have a different approach, which is to basically say, look, actually let's pull the data from the end platforms and pull those all together, not trying to fudge the numbers, but just trying to show side by side how they all stack up.
Yeah, I think it's really important because if we just talk about the first questions I always ask people is do you know how much you can afford to spend to acquire a new customer, and do you know how many new customers you need to achieve your goal? Now, about 80% of people don't know those answers to those two questions. So those are the fundamentals of economics for e-commerce brands. And then if one then says, okay, well, one needs to spend some marketing money, you've got some pretty basic decisions around which of the platforms you spend on and in what proportion you're going to spend. Now, on all of those, none of those is going to give you the right answer is the same as I was saying in your till, but Google, Meta, they don't lie inconsistent. Well, sorry, they're not inconsistent, and as a result, if you're going up, if your meta performance says it's getting better, it is getting better. If it's going down, it's going down. And there are so many other factors like creative and everything else, which actually, make a difference to this performance thing. And ultimately, one's got to remember that what we're trying to do is sell more. Yeah, but basically, we're trying to sell more to lower marketing costs. And so again, the native platforms give you really good indications on the direction of travel. Yeah, before you spend your whole time worrying about which one actually contributed to the sale or not, because that allocation bit, which is what we're basically saying is we all want it to add up to 100, is fraught with problems. And it's about being able to make decisions here. And the first thing you need to know is, are you recruiting your customers at the amount you can afford to spend? And then you can start playing with the mix.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. I think also, so the important point to call out here. So why should you go and look into the data in, let's say, Facebook ads or into Google ads rather than just looking at it in another sort of attribution tool? One of the advantages those two tech giants have is that they truly have a global user device graph. They know who is logged in on which devices, and they can be able to link cross-device sort of behavior. People who view an ad maybe on their mobile and go and buy on the desktop, or vice versa. And that is unique. Like all of the other tools out there, Triple L, Polo, they're basically just spinning the same data in a different way. There's not actually any other identifiers they can pull in that you or I don't have access to. So I think we've got to be very careful there when we're saying, look, we're improving attribution. The only real two companies that can do that are Google and Meta.
And that it would lead me to my if we think that Google Analytics, Google Ads and Meta Ads are probably, for most of our clients, the three sort of main touch points. Yeah, those guys have better information than anybody else. However much they may not package it very well, they may not make the GA interface very user friendly or whatever, but they do have better information. So I don't really get why people think that, if I take the Triple Whale Pixel, for instance, why that you believe that new customers from Meta can be allocated out into campaigns when they haven't got the information. So, it's a model. And
yes,
why you want to necessarily believe those models when, actual data-driven model in GA maybe, probably has more data points.
Yeah. So that's a nice segue, talking about the ad channels directly to our last point, which is that what you also need to be able to do is to track the accurate revenue into the ad channels, so that when you're pulling back that reporting into Sweet, or in fact, if you're just wanting to optimize the algorithm there, you can do that. And so what Littledata's main product is offering, in addition to our Google Analytics connector, is tracking accurate revenue into the channels, into Google Ads, Meta Ads, TikTok, Klaviyo, Attentive now. And the reason to do that is that the free connectors you typically have, the what we think the Google and YouTube app and Shopify, or maybe Google Tag Manager if you've got that set up, they're going to miss quite a lot of those conversions. So that means your reporting is inaccurate, yes, one, but it also means that Google can't allocate the budget to the campaigns that are winning. So if you think about it, if you have campaign A that on the surface got 10 purchases and campaign B that got 7 purchases, the budget is going 90% to A because Google thinks it's the winning creative, the winning campaign. But actually, that might be a misallocation. Campaign B might have actually just missed 4 conversions, and in fact, it's the better choice. So it's really, really important that we can get that accurate revenue into the ad platforms, not just for reporting, but from a kind of optimization of the algorithm point of view.
Yeah, but I think it's such an important point, and I think so often these words attribution, tracking, etc., get lost, and I think it's helpful that hopefully this 3 breakdown that we've talked about. But the really important bit for me is providing the right signals to the tracking systems. So Conversion API for Meta, does a good job, but there is more information that could be provided, and it's really important that we give Meta the best information we can. And from a Sweet perspective, even into just PMax, an up-to-date customer file. There are lots of bits of information that actually make the ad platforms perform better.
100%.
You provide, we provide, whatever. That is really, really important. And I think too often it doesn't get studied by the teams to make sure that they are providing the best information.
I agree, and you can always go to another level here. I mean, I think what's interesting talking about Meta is I think they're starting to, and going back to our point about tracking the full funnel. Previously, I think a lot of it was quite sort of the algorithm was only really learning from the actual purchase, the actual conversions. But I think increasingly using kind of mid-funnel events, things like adds to cart and checkouts, in order to kind of optimize, for people who are close to buying. And then obviously the key thing there is, as you say, being able to link those events back to a customer profile, but also being able to, and some of the tech we're looking into now is about basically filtering out kind of spammy signals there, bots and stuff that are maybe, they're going to waste your ad budget because they weren't really going to go through and buy. So I think there's lots of extra stuff you can do there, and I think this is why as a company we've chosen to just focus on that. On the data collection bit of this, on the data accuracy bit, because I think the whole data modeling, audience building, these are all different parts of the data stack that we can't focus on. You can't win at everything in technology, and we want to be a super robust product to solve this one problem.
That's my jacket there. So.
I think just to add to that, exactly that. Going back to where I am, at the moment, is that. Someone gave a really good talk just now, about the top of the funnel is making sure you've got your customer analytics and everything else sorted out before you worry too much about your measurement techniques down the bottom. And as we said, we could do a whole another one on mixed market modeling or econometrics or other things that make such a difference. But it's really important that that this part of people's tech stack is right. And that's why you kindly run our breakfast club this morning. Why we talk about it a lot, because it genuinely influences performance, and what we care about at Sweet is people being able to recruit people at a lower cost.
Okay, so let's recap on the best-in-class tech stack. So for our first category, for measuring the on-site performance, I think we're basically agreed it's generally Google Analytics. Customizable, flexible, tracks the full funnel. If you've got Littledata added, accurate, and highly open in the sense that you can integrate loads of other tools into it. For the second category, which is marketing attribution, I think the recommendation has to go to Sweet Analytics, just because you guys are doing a kind of this nice blended approach where you're saying, okay, look, we do need to understand what's driving the traffic, but we're trying not to, not to pretend that there's one, answer to this.
One absolute truth.
Yeah. You're not fanatics. And then I think for the accuracy into the marketing channels, that's where, without blowing my own trumpet, we're gonna pick Littledata, because that actually, although some of the other tools we mentioned have that aspect to them now, as I said, we are just totally focused on solving that problem. And I would say the quality of both the actual conversion tracking, the purchases, and also all of the funnel events leading up to it is sort of second to none in the industry. So I think it's about getting those three bits of your data stack right. And those three things together will work together to help you drive that growth. Anything more you want to add, Ronnie?
Yeah. And if I could just overlay that, understanding your custom metrics at the very beginning is the first point for me. To build success, you need to do that before you then understand how your site, because how your site performs makes any more difference than anything else, or how your ads are performing makes more difference than anything else. And that's the three for me before we spend all our time sweating around attribution.
Yeah, 100%. And I think also, as you alluded to earlier, there's just only so many ways you can spend your acquisition budget, right? So it's not, I don't think anyone said, hey, there's this magic channel out there which is just amazing. I mean, obviously some people get really good at a certain channel, and that's certainly one reason to sort of focus in. But it's all the same challenge. You've got to find good creative. You can find the right messaging, like audience targeting. Like it's not. I don't think by measuring the marketing mix or the marketing attribution, you're going to suddenly come to an insight that one channel is just stand out brilliant for you. If it was, everyone else would be stampeding there as well.
Exactly that. I mean, there's funny again, the client who was talking earlier on, they do use mixed market modeling, and what it does is it makes them feel confident, and that's the really important thing. And it's what really matters is that whatever tech stack you're using, you're getting to a point where you feel confident you can make decisions. That's all it's about. And too often there's too much noise about does it add up, rather than actually what am I doing to change it. And the evidence is actually, again, last bit from me is that things that can change it is thinking about creative. It's really important to think about other things rather than getting hung up on this topic.
Good. Well, thank you very much for joining me from the cloakroom. I hope you get out of there without someone trying to take your coat off you. And we'll look forward to seeing you again. And I hope for everyone listening that's been a useful chat about how you create the best-in-class data stack.